Alright, so today I'm going to talk about things you should consider before you join the military. So me personally, I served 5 years while I was in the military. I was stationed in Las Vegas. I did a 4-year contract at first and then I extended one. This video is pretty much like a compiled list of things you should consider before you join the military. I asked friends and associates, people that are in, veterans, and a couple of other people like their opinion of being in, things they wish they knew, things they would consider, just things in general that they would tell someone before they would join. So I'm just gonna go through the list. It's no particular order from good to bad, it's just more of just things to think about. So number one, we're gonna go with leadership. Leadership has like a really big influence in your career. Leadership can make or break your Air Force journey. It can limit where you go in life. It could stop you from going to school and just different things of that nature. You really have no control over the leadership you get. I've had some good leadership. I've had bad leadership. I have leadership that's looked out for me, pointed me in the right direction, helped guide my career. And I've also had leadership that's tried to help me back in the past. I wouldn't base your entire decision on whether or not you get good leadership, because honestly it's not under your control. And you can easily get moved to another section, another base, and it can be a completely different experience. That being said, leadership can have a strong influence in your progression. I actually know people personally that had their careers affected largely by leadership. I know some people that were trying to get out and try to do internship programs that their leadership blocked. I know people that had career opportunities blocked by their leadership and just for no particularly good reasons. Like sometimes leadership does have a really good reason to block things that you want to do. Like you might be insubordinate, you might come to work late, you might not be that good of a worker. But then there's those times where you have people that actually are good workers and they just have opportunities blocked just because of stingy leadership. They might be selfish or they may just want to keep you around for their own personal gain. Me personally, I had some good leadership on the way out. When I was getting out, I was trying to do internship programs, but there were particular people within that leadership that were actually trying to halt that process, slow the process down, kind of in a way sway me to get back in. For example, I wanted to do an internship on the way out and one of my leadership wasn't too fond of me getting out and wanted to try to sway me in, so make that whole process really difficult. But there are ways around that. You can always talk to someone else in your leadership. You can go over that person's head. But then there's also those times where like the person that's in charge is the one you have to go to. So there's always another way. There's resources available to you, people in your chain of command. There's a way to deal with unfair stuff while you're in the military. So don't let that be the make or break whether or not you get in. Number two, you're likely to spend your entire enlistment at one base. That happened to me personally. I got deployed once, but I spent my entire 5 years in the Air Force at Dallas Air Force Base. It was a good base. Some people didn't like it. I enjoyed it for the most part. I have no real complaints. If I could do it all over again, I would. I know some people that got stuck in New Mexico their entire career. Some people get stuck in the middle of nowhere in Oklahoma. I know some people that spent the majority of their careers overseas, from going from Hawaii to Japan to Korea, Las Vegas, back and forth to wherever they wanted to go. And I also know people that got stuck in the middle of the desert, in the middle of California. You really have no real control over what base you go to. You have a little bit of say. You get to fill out a dream sheet, which is pretty much like a 16 base list with 8 overseas, 8 stateside. At the end of the day, it really comes down to the needs of the military. So if something that you want lines up with what the military wants, you're likely to get it. In my case, I put all overseas and I put 1 stateside, and I ended up at that 1 stateside base. I didn't get the opportunity to get stationed overseas. That was really a goal of mine coming in. Whenever I filled out my dream sheet, I put all overseas, 1 stateside. I know some people that only wanted to stay stateside, so they only put stateside bases and only 1 stateside. If you really want to go overseas, you should list only overseas bases. You should not list any base that you do not want to go to, because you might go to that base. In my case, I was in tech school and I heard people that were putting all overseas bases were getting stuck stateside. I was afraid, so instead of listing all overseas, I put 1 stateside and I ended up at that 1 stateside base. So my advice to you is, if you don't want to go to a stateside base, do not put that stateside base. If you don't want to go to a particular overseas base, do not list that overseas base. There are certain bases such as like a base in Turkey, a base in Korea, any base that's your short tour base. If you put that base, you're probably going to end up at that base. Number 3, you won't get paid overtime. You get paid salary in the military. I'm not sure if that was obvious. Salary has its benefits, like you're going to get paid regardless. You're going to get paid on vacation. You're going to get paid whether or not you show up on time. or not. You're gonna get paid if you gotta go to an appointment. You're gonna get paid year round. The negative side of that is there's really no room for you to squeeze in some more hours, get a little bit extra money. You just gotta wait on your next rank to come up. You gotta wait for that year to go by for you to get the little pay bump. Or if you're lucky enough to get a special duty, you could get special duty pay. If you get deployed like I did, you get some extra pays on top of that. But it's really not too much of a crazy difference between your like regular base pay and the special pay you get. I remember basic training being 8 weeks, and during those 8 weeks, you're pretty much working the entire day. So you wake up at 5 a.m. and you're working until 9 p.m. nonstop. The only breaks you really get is maybe to go to class, but in class you're still working because you're learning, walking back and forth, marching around the base, just going to different appointments. And our only real break was lunch, well, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but those were only like 10 minutes apiece. You get 10 minutes to eat. 9 o'clock is lights out. Like, you just gotta go to sleep. You have no other option. This is a boot camp, of course. But working from sun up to sundown, you would think after 8 weeks you have like a good amount of money in your account. I remember the first time me and a few people, we got base liberty and we were able to go around base and just like explore and stuff like that. The first thing we thought is we want to go to the ATM to see how much money we got. I think it was like week 6 and we had maybe like $1,000, maybe like $1,500 in our bank account. And the only thing we were thinking like that's it. Because you would think working from sun up to sundown, doing all this work, exercising, marching, doing drill, you would think like I got some money in my bank account, but no, that wasn't the case. I didn't really have that much money after basic. Plus, you're not really paid a lot in basic. You probably, at the most, your paychecks in basic training are probably like $500, $600, depending on what rank you come in as. I came in with no rank at all, so I think my checks in basic training were like $550 each check. And considering it's 8 weeks, you only get paid like 4 times. What $500 times 4 is $2,000, so it's not really like. And then you still got to come out of like, I think it's a certain amount you got to come out of for, I believe, when you first get in, they make you pay for like your uniforms or something like that. Something comes off of something. I forgot what it was. It's been like 5 years, but some money was deducted. So pretty much by the time I got out of basic, I probably only had like $1,500. Like, it wasn't nothing crazy. Number 4, healthcare isn't really all that great. A lot of people, they come in, they're thinking like, hey, I got free healthcare. That's actually one of the big things people were telling me when I was getting out. It's like, what about the free healthcare? But honestly, the healthcare isn't that great. I mean, it is good healthcare. Like, it's not terrible healthcare. It's not the bottom of the barrel. But honestly, like, you deal with a lot of providers that might not really know what they're talking about. Like, of course, they're professionals. They know more than you. But you can have an issue and they're just kind of just pushing it to the side, or they might be trying to focus on the wrong thing. Like, for example, I was dealing with knee pain my first entire year I was in the military. Instead of really solving the problem, the doctor just kept prescribing me pill after pill after pill. And I was like 18 years old with every single painkiller in the book in my medicine cabinet. But the real issue was I had mobility issues. I needed to stretch a little more. I needed to rest. I needed to ice. I needed to strengthen certain muscles because I had muscle imbalances. But that particular doctor was just prescribing me ibuprofen. He was prescribing me like Clofenac, naproxen, just any type of pill you can think of, and just giving me the highest dose you can possibly give someone, and telling me to take these pills every day. But it's just like, you shouldn't take these pills every day, because I don't think that's good for your body. It's not good to continuously take these painkillers instead of actually trying to solve the problem. I have had a lot of good doctors. I've had doctors that helped me out. I have certain doctors that don't even specialize in things. Like, I've had a physical therapist help me with like mental health problems. I've had a mental health provider help me with physical problems and how the brain affects your body and just things of that nature. So it really depends. It's hit or miss. You never know what you're gonna get, but it's just like, the free healthcare isn't all of that. I also have friends that were sick for a long time, was getting refused care, refused referral due to like a lack of availability. You might be at a base where there's like 2 providers, but there's like 2 or 3,000 airmen at that base, and you might not be able to get seen. This person in particular, I'm gonna throw it up on the screen, they were struggling to get seen because every base that they were at in their area, they only had a couple of providers, so they were refusing care to those people because they just didn't have the access to care that they needed. I've seen this happen a lot with women that go to like women's health appointments, and their provider at that women's health or the gynecologist will be a male provider. Yes, you might be educated. Yes, you might have a PhD. Yes, you study. Maybe you work for X amount of years. But at the end of the day, a man's not gonna know a woman's body the way a woman does because he's not living in that body. So there's been times I have numerous friends that have had bad experiences with those male providers, and requesting to have a female provider, but at the end of the day, it's just like getting refused, like, hey, I got this, take this instead of actually fixing the issue that was actually going on. But again, that really just depends on the provider you deal with. It's hit or miss. You never know what you're gonna get. Usually these issues, you can like push up the chain. Like if it's something that's really going on, you're really not getting the care that you want, you can request to see someone else. Like if the provider doesn't want you to see someone else, you can go talk to your leadership, commander, something. You can get help. Number 5, never having a set schedule. This is really dependent on the job you have. The job I had a set schedule for the most part. Like I worked in the hospital, I was working like administrative stuff. So I worked pretty much just regular 9 to 5. I think the first place I worked at, I was working from like 8 to 5, then eventually changed from 7:30 to 4:30, then 6:45 to 3:45, and moved around a lot. But the thing is, it can also be things such as, like, let's say you have PT 3 times a week, so you might have to wake up at 4 in the morning, you gotta do PT by 5:30, you gotta be back out, showered by 6:30, you gotta be at work by 7. But then other days throughout the work, you might not have to do that. You also may have things such as exercises. We had a lot of exercises on my base, so we might have to get up at 2, 3 in the morning to go drive an hour out to some field over there to go do some training. We might have to come in at like 2, 3 in the morning to dress up like and stuff, acting like we've had a mass casualty or something like that, and just basically just practice for a disaster, things like that. Usually nothing bad ever happened, at least while I was in, nothing bad really happened while we were there. We've had some incidents, but it wasn't nothing that put my life in danger. But there's also other people that have jobs such as maintainers, their security forces. They really don't have a set schedule. Like I know some maintainers that work 12-hour shifts. I know some that work 16-hour shifts. I know some that work 8-hour shifts. I know people that have gone in at like 8 a.m., didn't get off till 8 p.m., but then had to come right back in at 1 a.m. So it really just depends on your job, depends on how critically manned it is. Depends on your leadership, the mission at that base. You might have to work 24-hour ups where it's like you work for 12 hours, someone else works those 12 hours, and you have to come right back in, work another 12 hours. Like it just might be back to back to back. I know people when I was deployed that worked for 2 months straight. I know people that had like every weekend off. I know people that had 3 days off a week. It really just depends on your base, your job, the mission, a whole lot of things. Like somebody can get hurt and you might have to come in more. It really just depends. Number 6, picking a job that directly lines up with what you want to do on the outside. This person in particular pretty much said they wish they picked an AFSC, which is Air Force Specialty Code. For the Air Force, it might be MOS for the Army or the Marines. But pretty much they wish they would have picked a job that directly correlated with the job they want on the outside. A lot of people go in with no actual plan. Some people, they want to be a doctor, but they go in and they be security forces. Some people, they want to work on planes, but they'll go inside and work in the hospital. You don't really have a lot of control over the job you do get, but you can have some influence. Me personally, my aspirations and things I wanted to do just changed the entire time I was in. I had a point where I wanted to stay in the Air Force 20 years, commission, become an officer, do medical service corps. I've also wanted to do IT, wanted to do entrepreneurial things. I'm still young, so my goals change all the time. But while I was in, I worked in healthcare administration, so it was kind of lining up with what I wanted to do while I was in. It kind of worked out because I had a plan coming in that I was like, hey, I want to do this healthcare job. I want it to be admin. Really, not even just healthcare. I want to do admin in general. But I kind of had a good idea of what I wanted to do because I knew if I got out, I wanted to do something similar to what I was doing when I was in. There's people that want to be like CEOs of companies, but they'll come in and like be a bomb operator and blow things up. Like it doesn't really make sense. But it really comes down to you really don't have a lot of control over your job you do get. Me in particular, I got kind of lucky because I went in open general. Open general pretty much just says that you're pretty much just playing a lottery and you don't get to pick your job until like your 3rd week of basic training. And even then it's similar to the dream sheet. You pick what jobs you potentially want. You don't list what jobs you don't want, and then hopefully by the time you get out of basic training, you get that job. I know some people that came in knowing exactly what they wanted. The recruiter said they can get it for them, and then they ended up working in the DFAC, working in services, cooking and stuff. So it really just depends on your recruiter. There's some really good recruiters out there. There's some bad ones, but it really just depends. There's no guarantee you're gonna get a job that lines up with what you want to do on the outside. For me personally, like if you get a job that you don't want to do on the outside, like let's say you become a cop, and you want to work in healthcare, I would suggest you stay in, do your 4 years, 6 years, whatever you sign, and then just go to school while you're in, and then get out and pursue that job. And also while you're on the way out, pursue something like SkillBridge. You can do an internship with certain companies. Number 7, complacency. I see the complacency thing a lot. It's like a trend. Like a few people said the same thing. Like this person in particular said that having the security of a check, especially after the pandemic, is hard to want to let go. And then another person said it's easy to feel guilt tripped or trapped staying in because you have a 20-year welfare check, is what the person called it. Personally, I agree. I actually dealt with that while I was in. Like, it's really easy to get complacent. Like, I was coming straight out of Detroit. I was coming out of high school. I got to a base. I finally got my first car. After about a year, I got my first apartment. I had a check coming in every month. I had a check coming in every 2 weeks. I didn't have to worry about paying my bills. I had everything I wanted, bought everything I wanted, got to travel wherever I wanted on my own time. Well, to a certain extent, I got to travel where I wanted. But I pretty much had no worries, and the people around me had no worries. They were starting families. Some people got married. People had kids. It's easy to get caught in this flow of just going from paycheck to paycheck. You know, you're not really saving a lot of money, but you're not spending a lot. It's easy to just get stuck in that cycle of constantly, like, I got my bills paid, I'm gonna go buy some stuff, I'm gonna go have some fun, I'm good, and just do that for 20 years because when it's time to get out, they're like, wait, if you only got 6 more years left, or if you do 10 more years, you can retire and get your little pension. There's people that have bigger goals in life, but they never go pursue those goals because they're caught in a cycle. It's easy to lose sight of your goals while you're in. It's really not a fault of the military, it's really something that's within yourself. And I have myself to blame for that as well. Before I got out, it's easy to get stuck in that cycle of, I'm gonna go to work, go to the gym, go home. Or let's say you're in school, you go to work, you go work out, you go to school, you go home, you got your bills paid. You really have nothing to worry about. Every year you get a promotion, you constantly get pay raises. It's hard to let go because, you know, on the outside, you're not always guaranteed a promotion, whereas in the Air Force or in the military in general, you get a pay raise pretty much every year, and you always get the opportunity to test for the next promotion at whatever point once you get to the point where you can test for a rank. It's really easy to get complacent. Number 8, the hype dies down. This person in particular says it's not all it seems. The hype of joining and the sense of accomplishment you get from graduating basic training and tech school slowly fades away after a year or so. I agree to a certain extent. It really just depends on the person. It depends on what you got going on. Depends on what you expected out of your military career. I do agree with the hype does die down because the process of getting in, it's intense. You go through basic training, you're getting screamed at, you're running around, you're doing all this stuff, you're getting ready to graduate, you're doing all these practices. Then once it's finally time to graduate, your family comes, everyone celebrates, everyone's happy. You go to tech school, same thing, it's just get to the end. Once you get to the end, it's a big celebration, but all that dies down once you get to your regular base. Once you get to a regular base, it's just pretty much work. Like, it's just work. You just go to work, go home. You might have some extracurricular things you do on the side. You might get an award or something that keeps you going. You might get a promotion that keeps the excitement up a little bit. But really, it's really just a regular job. So the hype does die down. I do agree with that. Number 9, recruiters lie a lot. So my recruiter in particular, he didn't lie to me. I actually did a lot of research before I got in. So it's really nothing that the recruiter could tell me that I didn't already know. Whereas I know other people that were promised like an administrative job and ended up being like wearing those giant suits spraying bugs for the rest of their 4 years. I've known people that have joined the Army thinking they were going to do certain things and then they were digging holes for 2 years. Alright, camera cut off. I know a guy that was in the Army that spent 2 years just digging holes. Like, it really just depends. The recruiter is pretty much your introduction to whatever branch you're going into. What your recruiter tells you really does have like a big impact on like pretty much your impression on the rest of the military. My recruiter, personally, like, he wasn't a bad dude, but he was kind of sloppy. For example, I was going in open general. However, I actually signed a contract to go in open mechanical. I didn't score good at all in open mechanical on the ASVAB. I actually scored terrible. Like, I'm not that handy. Like, I can do things with tools, but I'm not fixing anything. And I didn't catch, and the only reason that this got caught was when I had to go to MEP so many times. I had to go back, get retested, I had to take my ASVAB twice. Well, I wanted to take it twice. I got in the first time, but I wanted to get a higher score. But I had to go back in and redo some fingerprints, get some more blood drawn. And the guy in the office was going over my contract. And he said, "So you're going in open mechanical, right?" I'm like, No, I'm going in open general, and it says here you signed to go in open mechanical. So a lot of sloppy work, like recruiters can really mess up your career. But then again, it still depends. There's no guarantee. You don't have any control over what recruiter you get. Number 10, mental/physical toll. Mental toll really just depends on how your career goes, pretty much. I know people that have had terrible careers. I know people that have great careers. One thing that has an effect on you mentally probably will be like being away from family, being far away from home, never seeing your family. Me, luckily, I was a flight away, but some people, they spend their entire careers overseas, and a lot of people, their families can't afford to come see them, so they may never see them again. Yes, you have 30 days of leave every year, but you really don't have that much. You don't have a lot of freedom to really determine when you're getting off work and when you're taking that leave. Me, I was lucky enough to be able to take as much leave as I wanted whenever, well, not whenever, but I had a lot of freedom to take leave. But then there were some people that never got chances to get off work. They never had off days. They never got to see their family. And eventually, like, let's say you have like a wife and kids, or you have a husband, that can end up affecting your family life if your spouse isn't able to go overseas with you or not go to a certain base. I've seen families break up on deployments. I've seen people lose career opportunities due to their family, and I've seen people lose their mind over the military. My career wasn't that bad. I had a lot of issues while I was in mentally, but it wasn't anything that like I couldn't get through personally. But there are some people that deal with I know some people that really lose like sense of themselves just being in. Physical toll, again, this really depends on your career branch and what you do. Me in particular, I worked admin, so I spent a lot of time sitting down, but I did have a lot of physical toll going through basic training. Had shin splints, had knee issues, had hip issues, back issues, shoulder issues. Being in, I had a lot of issues physically just because of the exercise regimen I had going on, not taking enough time to rest, basic training to give you these shitty boots that have no ankle support whatsoever. You're walking around 12 hours a day, marching, spinning, jumping. Marines in the Navy have it a lot worse. Like I know the Navy, they have like Hell Week or something like that, where they're just out doing everything you can think of for like a week straight. I know like Marines that had to spend like 24 hours or a week outside with no help, and they had to just sleep on the ground, sleep in tents, eat like wild animals and bugs and stuff like that just to survive. Air Force, we didn't have to do anything like that. But physically, it can be a toll. My advice for that is just before you get in, just make sure you like exercise, stretch, fix any muscle imbalances you might have before you got in. Don't come in with any injuries, pre-existing injuries. If you had a pre-existing injury, just make sure you get like a lot of that under control before you get in, because there's a chance that you can aggravate certain issues depending on what you do. Number 11, restrictions for college. Me in particular, I didn't have a lot of restrictions. I was able to go to school pretty much really early on. Restrictions for college is pretty much you don't get to go to school right away. Like you get out of basic training, you got to go to tech school. Once you go to tech school, you got to go to your first base. Once you get to your first base, you got to do upgrade training. Your upgrade training can last anywhere from a month to a couple years for some people. Me, I think my upgrade training was about a year, and after a year, I was able to go to school. But a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people think you can just go straight to your base, go straight to school, but that isn't always the case. You also have to get approved by your leadership to go to school. So if you're not doing good at work, or let's say you fail a PT test or something like that, you're probably not going to school. They're not going to approve you for that. Also, tuition assistance has a cap every year. I actually reached my cap pretty much every year I was in. I had to stop going to school for like a couple months or like a month or two here and there. But they also have ways around that, such as the Pell Grant or activating the GI Bill. But I wouldn't recommend activating the GI Bill while you're in. I know some people that they weren't given the chance to actually go to school at all, like maintainers, for example, or security forces. Like a lot of them, they work crazy hours. They don't really have time to go to school online. They don't have time to go to school in person. It really depends on your job. A lot of stuff in the military just depends. And finally, number 12, quality of life and everything isn't free. A lot of people have this perception that everything in the military is free. Like before I got in, or while I was in, it was like, oh, the Air Force pays for your rent, or the military pays for your food. They pay for this, pay for your clothes. Somebody said the Air Force gets you free gas, and I'm like, it's none of that. Like, yeah, you get a housing allowance while you're in the military, but honestly, if you were to compare what you do right now in the military to the civilian equivalent of that job, you're pretty much making the same amount with that housing allowance. And honestly, if you weren't getting that housing allowance, you'd probably be homeless. As far as quality of life, again, that depends. It depends on what base you're at, your job, branch, whether you're deployed or not. It just depends. Me, my quality of life was pretty good. I live in Las Vegas. I was in the dorms for like a year and a half. Got my first apartment off base. Quality of life wasn't bad. When I was deployed, I was in a dorm. It was really like a shack, but it was like a shack with the showers in it. Two to a room. It wasn't that bad when I was deployed. I know some people, they were deployed and they stayed in a tent. They had to shit in the hole. They had to brush their teeth with water bottles. I know some people, they didn't have toilet paper when they were deployed. I got friends that are in the Marines. They living bad. I know some like our Army bases, they might be like 3 or 4 to a room in the dorms. Air Force, you get your own room. I know people in the Navy that spend majority of their life on the water, living in those small quarters on the boat. So again, like quality of life really just depends. So to end this video off, I'm pretty much just a small little list of like advice just a list of advice that I compiled from like a few people. It's not a long list, just some things to just keep in your head while you're going in. Be true to yourself and remember what's important to you. Don't lose sight of why you're joining. Like, you might be joining because you want to go to school. You might be joining because you're trying to get away from a bad place in life. You might genuinely want to get into the military because you want to serve your country. But just don't lose sight of the reason you got in. You might have got in because you have family or you have a new kid. You can't afford the medical coverage, so you're in to pay those bills. Just keep these whys in your mind while you're in, because you want these to be the influence to your decision. You don't want anything else to influence your decision. You don't want the beliefs of your leadership to influence your decision. You want your why and the reason you got in to be the reason that you make certain decisions in your career. Another one is don't pick up any bad habits. I didn't really pick up any habits in the military. Like, I was pretty good with that. I know people that have alcohol addictions now. I know some people that vape every day. Some people I know some people, they literally can't go like 5 seconds without hitting their vape every couple seconds. Some people pick up like a tobacco habit. Some people end up chewing. Some people smoke cigarettes. There's a large like energy drink addiction community in the military. Like, I didn't really drink energy drinks like that because I was turned off from it, because everybody was just like downing Bangs and Monster energy drinks and just a lot of energy drinks. Don't drink energy drinks. There's also certain people that pick up other habits on like hard drugs. Like, don't be those people. Like, just go get some help, something like that. Talk to somebody. You probably guess what those habits are. Just get some help. The next on this list is consider going in as an officer. The experience I talked about is just from my personal experience, the experiences of people I know on the enlisted side. Pretty much everyone would tell you should go in as an officer instead of coming in enlisted. I can't speak too much on the officer side because I never experienced that myself. However, I do know they get paid more, so it's like, if you're going to deal with certain stuff anyway, I guess you might as well get paid for it, right? Next, use it as a stepping stone. That's kind of what I did personally. Like, I was just using the Air Force as a way to leave home, get a job, steady income, save some money, travel a little bit, get a different experience, and have them pay for my school so that whenever I did get out, I can pursue a career that I actually want to do. And some people use the military to get certifications. Some people might want to do like contracting overseas for like security, and they might use the Air Force or the military to go in and go get their secret security clearance, top secret security clearance, get trained, and then they'll get out and go do those jobs you want to do. So the military is a really good stepping stone, and you should use it to your advantage. And last but not least, the military isn't bad. I don't have any regrets joining. I know some people, they regret it, but me personally, like, if I could do it all over again, I would. Like, I would start over from day one. Every moment, bad moment, good moment, I would still join. I wouldn't change anything. I would probably try to go overseas. Well, actually, I really tried to go overseas, but I would really like make it my mission to just go overseas. Don't change your mind. Go overseas. Well, that pretty much wraps up this video. If you have any questions about joining the military, drop a comment down below. Other than that, we'll see you in the next video.